Hi guys, it's Serein and welcome to Behind the Beauty. Behind the Beauty is a weekly podcast series where we get together to take a peek inside the world of fashion and beauty by talking directly to the people and the brands that we love. Join me each episode as I pull back the curtain and take you behind the beauty. Hi guys, welcome back to Behind the Beauty. I'm very excited to have Liz Kaplow of Kaplow Communications. She is the CEO and founder, and I've actually worked with a few of your colleagues over there, which was very exciting to have you on here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So essentially, you're the head honcho at Kaplow. So, and what's really interesting is that, talking to everybody over there, everyone has nothing but amazing things to say about working for Kaplow. So
Thank you.
So I'm really excited to have you on here. Basically, for those of you guys listening, essentially you guys are PR. Right? Or do you have more that goes? I mean, I don't know much about that world. So if you could explain a little bit of what.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. So, my background is going back many years ago, started in public relations, and I started Kaplow Communications in 1991 because there was very little flexibility in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of before the advent of the technology that enabled us to be so flexible, work from anywhere. And I started very, very slowly, and through the years built a communications agency that, is founded in public relations, but also has evolved very much as the world has changed, as the media landscape has changed, so that today we work with social media and branded content and influencers. And the idea is that behind every brand is always a great story. And the idea is, how do we tell that story the best way to reach consumers that could be through any, of many, many different ways today. And that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, because, I work with you guys as an influencer, but I know that you really are very hands-on with the brands that you work with in helping them share what they're about and really letting the consumer learn more about them.
Yes.
So I know you mentioned that you originally started out in public relations. How did you kind of start that journey to get to where you are now? I know you touched a little bit about it, but did you discover this in college, or was it something you set out for?
Yeah. I was my undergraduate college degree was as an English major. And, it was very much a liberal arts education, which I love to this day. The idea that you can take time to learn, to read critically and think critically, and it doesn't always lend itself to a career afterwards. And I think what happened to me is I got out and I was sort of like, well, what do you do with this now? And my dad was involved with the Fashion Institute of Technology, and I ended up going and talking to him and getting into FIT for a graduate program for 1 year. And within that year, it was advertising communications. There was a public relations course, and it clicked for me. And I thought, this is something that I would love, the idea of, spreading word, if you will, learning about brands, being able to reach out to editors and journalists and get our brands and clients out there. And so I landed an internship, and it was at a very big agency. And then I really didn't want to work in a big agency, and I learned. And then I had another internship with this woman who was very, very demanding. She was today we would probably call her like a trend expert or, like a futurist. Mm-hmm. And she would have clients come in and give them a sense of what was going on in the zeitgeist. And she was very, forward thinking. And I basically had to do everything for her. She would kind of entertain her clients for tea in the afternoon, and then she would say, Liz, can you do the dishes in the ladies' room? And
Oh.
it was like crazy things to do. But what I realized from that is, you have to get your start somewhere,
Uh-huh.
and you have to be willing just to do everything to get immersed and to learn. And so between the internship at the agency and then, working for this woman, I started honing in on what I thought I really liked to do. And after that, I ended up at an agency for many, many years before I went out on my own, and then started Kaplow in 91.
Wow, that's amazing. But it's
Yeah,
always so wonderful to hear, you're the ultimate girl boss or babe boss at this point, and you had to
thank
do dishes at some point too. Like, it's very
You have
empowering.
to. And
Yeah.
it's very important when women sort of look at other women and they think that, they just, how did they get there? And it looks, the truth is everyone has the ability to find their way. You just have to start somewhere and, you kind of dive in. And young women often come to me and they say, I want to get into PR, I want to get into something. And I think they worry too much over finding sometimes the perfect thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to get started somewhere. And, you see something you love from that job, you see something actually you don't love from that, and you kind of take something from each experience and put it together. But a lot has to do with feeling good and feeling confident, which I'm so impressed that that's you do in your work every day. And I think that that's a big part of it as well for women.
Yeah, I think it's so important to know and to learn from what you can at every place that you're at in life. Um,
Completely.
Great. So what are some of the biggest changes and how the industry is different today than when you started? I know obviously technology is just like completely changed.
Technology.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and have you noticed that is it helpful or is it almost hindering?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think technology is very, very helpful, number one, in terms of connecting us, but just in general, women in the workplace. I mentioned before that it was very hard to sustain agency life because
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't that technology. And one of the reasons that I started Kaplow was because I needed that flexibility that we didn't have the technology then. And I think that we keep a lot of women here and are able to retain them through when they have babies and become moms and because of technology, because, you can leave and then you get back on and, people can stay connected. So technology has been huge. I think in helping us work more effectively with flexibility. And I think in terms of the change in the media landscape, that's also very, very interesting. And so, when I started out, it was very much about, the editors, and it
Mm-hmm.
was the broadcast media and magazines, newspapers, radio, period. And, life was kind of simple. And, you went in and that was what we did in PR. It was media relations, and we got our clients, in the news or on TV. And then with the advent of social media and influencers, all of that started to change and being able for brands to speak directly to consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And then that whole sort of interaction and engagement between consumers and influencers and brands, it's just a completely different world, but it does make it very, very interesting. And I think in some ways, we're not going to have all the answers because it's going to keep changing, but the idea is to stay very open-minded and relevant. And if you stay true to storytelling and for brands to be able to want to get out there with authentic stories about what they stand for, what they do, their beautiful products, how they can make people's lives better, then what really the technology is just affording us different ways to tell those stories.
Yeah, That's so wonderful. It's a great way to look at it. Um,
I think so.
yeah, speaking of storytelling, it's been said that you pioneered the use of storytelling to help brands connect with consumers. How
Hmm.
did you come up with that idea?
I mean, the first few days that I was in agency life, I remember um, a client coming in and talking about their handbag, and over time it would develop this incredible patina as the leather would wear down, and then there was another one that was talking about the legwear that was made in Austria, and it would have this incredible sheen, and you could wear it and then just rinse it out, and and I started thinking about all these incredibly fun stories and people inside or behind the brand, if you will. Sometimes it was the CEO, sometimes it was the founder, sometimes it was an R&D person, but they had a lot of different passion and enthusiasm for their products, and that's what I mean by storytelling, because I remember getting so excited about these stories, and I thought, let's look at it that way instead of looking at it as pushing products on journalists. Let's look at it as the excitement of bringing great brand stories.
Hmm.
And that was a very early idea, I think, then. And it remains today. That really hasn't changed.
No, I love that about you and I love that about your company because that's what I love about working with brands is getting to share with my listeners or my viewers the story. I mean, this is kind of where the podcast even originated is I wanted to share everyone's journey to where they are and kind of the people behind the brands and the special moments and how they got to where they are now.
Yes. And that comes through when I listen to your work. All of that enthusiasm comes through, and it's very authentic. And so, it can go across categories. It can be in the beauty industry. It can be consumer technology. I mean, for me, what's the fun of this is, you get to kind of dip into all of these different businesses. It can be a blue chip company. It can be a tiny startup, but there's generally something. There's some magic there that is
Hmm.
our job to be able to help communicate. So I love that too.
Yeah, it's so wonderful that you take something that can be almost a little formulaic and then have put heart into it.
Yes.
Um, so I know you've been in public relations and in the industry for a while, even before you started your own company. Were there a lot of women back then?
There were, for in my world, I was very lucky that way. And my mentors were all, many of them were women, and they were very strong women. And I don't think that I was conscious of um, any differences. I felt, I sort of learned along the way. If you roll up your sleeves and you kind of just put your head down and do a good job, you would be rewarded. So there were many women within the industry, that I was in when I started, and like I said, many great mentors, many great clients I've learned from all along the way. I do think that where I started to see the challenges is when, within the agency, I start to see, even in my own life, as I mentioned before, it's very hard to sustain, to stay in the workplace when you have little kids.
Yeah.
And there's a very big drop off at mid career that exists in almost every single industry. And, when I went on as president of New York Women in Communications in 2013, that was an area that I saw that we haven't really progressed on as much as we should have. It just becomes more and more difficult. And I think it's the job of women who have gotten into leadership positions to really mentor those women and kind of get them through that difficult time period so that they can get into those coveted leadership positions, become CEOs, get more women on board. It's just going to be a process,
Hmm.
but I I think if we concentrate on it, the kind of work you're doing, supporting each other, at every generation, I think we'll have a better shot at it.
Yeah, because, you know, I'm at that age group with my friends where everybody has kids or starting to have kids and young ones at that. And I just don't know how they do it. And I can't imagine doing what I do and having a little kid at the same
Yeah,
time. Like,
yeah,
I can't
I
imagine
know.
it.
It's craziness, right?
Yeah. And I work for myself. So for the most
Yeah,
part, I can set my own schedule, but I still cannot fathom how I'm going to juggle that.
yeah, yeah.
So I think it's so important to have you on here, on not just on here, but in the world, being like, no, it's doable. We can figure this out.
Oh, well, you know what? We have to keep telling stories. You have to keep hearing stories about women who did raise kids, who kept their career going. I mean, I will never say it's easy. I think that women have to be careful to make things seem like they're easier than they really are.
Yeah.
And if we can be vulnerable and show, the real messiness of what things are, I think it's better. I mean, it's always, there's always something, with little kids. And like you said, to stay working, it seems so overwhelming, but somehow it just works out and you get help and you sort of find the right way and life goes by, life becomes very, very full. But I think it's really worth it to stay in the game because then, you're sort of have something that you've built that you don't have to fall away from and then figure out how to get back into.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I like work, which is why it's something that I would be very like passionate about trying to maintain both. But,
Yes.
and of course, if women don't want to continue their career, that's completely fine and that's their decision as well. But I don't want it to ever feel like I have to choose one or the other.
Right.
Um,
Right. And I don't think you will. You'll see, I think it goes back a little bit to, this sounds crazy because it is so good to plan, but there's this thing, I did a talk about that there's no GPS when it comes to your career. Like there's no, sometimes I think we look too hard for an exact plan
mhm.
about when to do certain things. And it just, life sort of doesn't work that way. It works a little more through serendipity
Yeah.
and just seeing as things unfold in the moment. And that brings us to the next opportunity. But somehow we manage our way through it with the little ones. It is not easy, but I know that you'll do well if that's a decision that you make.
Yeah, I just, I have a nephew. He's turning 4, and then I have my best friend that I've had forever. Like I've known her for most of my life, and her kid's turning 3 this year, and I just see how much energy they
Yes,
require. So I was like,
I
"Oh my
know.
God." Like,
I know. It's almost like I know you sort of try to envision it, and it's. I mean, there were some days when my kids were little that I was like, I think that I was sleeping standing up,
oh my God.
or like I would wear two different shoes to work. I often tell that story because like you're just so exhausted when you get up in the morning from not sleeping well, or if they go, catching things in school. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I somehow think that having that work also was good for me as a mom when the kids were little, and it did get easier as they got older. That's true.
Yeah. I also do think it's important as women that when we do become mothers to not lose ourselves, whether or not it's going back to work or
Yes,
finding time for yourself. Like,
I
I,
think so.
yeah, I think I see it happen a lot with my friends that they go through this period where they're like, I need to be something other than mom for a second.
Yes, yes, that's such a good point. I think it's true. If you're lucky enough to find a passion, that is good for, it's good for our identity, and it is a way to give that time to ourselves and be productive. And I think it's really important.
Yeah, like whatever it is, even if it's not going to be going back into your career full force, but I do think women need to have self-identity other than being a mom.
I think it's good. You know, my mom is an artist. She has painted my whole life, and she's 90, and
Oh,
she's still going to the Art Students League, which is, this really well-known studio in New York. And, she said to me, I just feel great when I paint. So to your point, it just has to be something that defines who we are,
yeah.
that we
Be-
should keep.
and for yourself, and I think, and as I get older and I meet women who are in their later in life and they're just healthy. Like I was shopping for new lighting equipment and this woman had lost her husband a year
Yeah,
ago, but she
yeah,
she lifted these C stands that wait, I thought because she lifted it they weren't that heavy, but then I grabbed it and I was like, "Whoa, like how did you just lift two of these and run across the
yeah.
store?"
Oh,
And, she's healthy, she's vibrant,
yes,
and she keeps going. She's like, it's hard. It's really hard. I lost him.
yeah,
He
yeah.
was my everything, but
Oh,
you have to find a way.
yes,
And for her, it was work, going back to work in something that she's passionate about.
yeah,
And that was,
exactly.
yeah. So it really is just good for the mind and soul.
I think so, for
Um,
sure.
Yeah. So in 2009, you were awarded the Women of Distinction from the Girl Scouts of America. Can you talk a little bit about your involvement with the Girl Scouts and how you've become involved with such an amazing
Oh
organization?
my God, those girls are unbelievable. Well, it was very sweet. They called me, and I actually was a brownie, but I never made it to the Girl Scouts. But it was what I learned from that experience. I mean, again, it goes back to mentoring.
Hmm.
These girls and scouting is it's just such an incredible way because they learn leadership. They have role models, and I think that what I learned going through that is that we just have to continue our involvement and giving back to organizations that support girls and women. And for me, and it was truly a wonderful experience. The Girl Scouts and the Brownies actually came to the event, and each one gives hands an award to each honoree.
Oh,
And I remember this little Daisy, which I think she was 4 years old, and she walked up onto the stage and she handed me the award. As I'm talking to you, I'm actually looking at the picture right now. She was precious, and it did make me realize after that the importance of giving back. And so as I said, I got involved with New York Women in Communications. Last year, I received a Matrix Award, which is the award, one of really the top awards for women in communications. And again, the theme of that was mentoring and supporting women at every stage of their career.
hmm.
And so for me right now with business, I built that into work. Like I built in the idea of supporting women. I don't think that you have to separate giving back their personal life. You can kind of today, I think that people are merging those things together. And so there isn't sort of a separate home persona in one way. And it's really about, how can we do the job, but how can we also continue to support women? And I think that those two examples really, really did that for
Yeah.
me.
I love that. I love that you just constantly want to support women at any stage in their career.
Yes, and it's important, and it goes a lot to what you're doing when you're building confidence in women with what you do and how enthusiastic and passionate you get. With each time you go out there. I was watching you and I was like, wow, it's so real. So I think we're all doing it in our own way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think it's so important this community that we have, and we have to stick up with for each other. And it really is like a sisterhood.
Yes,
So, can you tell us a little bit about the CEW? Because I don't think a lot of people know what the CEW is and
yes,
what your role is with them. Because I just realized there's like a chapter in LA too.
yes,
So
exactly.
I
So
thought it was a New York thing.
CEW is Cosmetic Executive Women. I mean, it's a global community for the beauty industry. It's 800 members strong. And it is really the preeminent, the most important beauty organization of professional women. And, they come from every facet of the industry. They are, they're everything from publishing to R&D. They're chemists, their journalism, their PR, their marketing. And it's such a great, for me, it has been something that I've been involved in for many, many years. I got connected to CEW, gosh, over 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I know their president, Carlotta Jacobson, she is a mentor of mine. She's a colleague and friend in my agency. Kaplow is the agency of record for CEW. So we've worked so closely with them, and I very much admire the work. I mean, they really recognize the achievement of women, and they're inspiring the next generation around leadership, which is so incredible. And I think that they're very, very powerful as a group. But again, it goes back to that mentoring, which is so incredible. And so one of the big programs we work on that is so much fun is the CEW Beauty Awards. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's where the insiders, the members of CEW actually vote on the most innovative products of the year. So that's a really, really fun one.
I get really excited about that every year. Because I always want to see who wins the awards.
I know. It's huge. It's really a great one. And then, of course, their foundation is Cancer and Careers, which I think you've been a little bit involved in promoting, right?
Yes, I am actually.
The sale in QVC.
I'll be doing that video, I think, next week. So I'm very excited about it.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if you know, but my mom recently passed away, essentially because of developing liver cancer and a bunch of other complications.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And my husband's mom passed away right before I actually met my husband, due essentially a rare case of ovarian cancer. So I just think it's such an epidemic that we have right now. And too many people have experienced loss or struggles with cancer. And, and it really takes a toll on everybody, but I'm obviously focusing on mothers and what it's like to lose a mom and what it's like to watch your mom go through all of that.
Yeah.
So it's very important to me. And I love what QVC is doing. So when I was asked like if I would participate, I'm like, of course, there's no question. I'm going to participate.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's so generous of you. Thank you for helping to spread the word. And the sale is it's a terrific fundraiser for Cancer and Careers. So the more we can get the word out on that's incredible.
Yeah, and I think it's a great partnership with QVC too, like for them to do that, because the percentage is huge of what they're going to give back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for everyone out there, that's May 18th on QVC from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. And I will have, this podcast is going up this week, so I will have that video going up early.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really greatly appreciated.
Yeah, so you guys definitely check it out. There's some amazing brands, amazing opportunities to help out and get something fun as well.
Great.
So, and finally, I can't believe it's almost 45 minutes, but
I know. I could talk to you every day.
I know, right? I love these podcasts because it's casual. We're just chatting. But for someone who might be living, let's say in like Arkansas or Idaho, that is interested in getting into the PR field or the beauty field, or just, being a woman and wanting to get into that world, because I think it's so glamorous. Even for me, I live in LA. It's a pretty major city, but when I go to New York, visiting the office and seeing all of that, what kind of advice would you give them to just get started?
Yeah, you know what? I think, again, going back to what I said before about getting started, just research the companies in your area. Generally, there is a company that will have a need for communications, for public relations, for you to do their social media. There'll be some offshoot of something that go, to what we were saying before, that the field is so big now. It's good to dive in. It's good to get started. And once you do, that then gets you into the next thing. I think, for me, again, I went to that program
Mm-hmm.
because I had the liberal arts education, so that one year of really even understanding what public relations was, that was very helpful to
Yeah.
me. So that sometimes I do tell people to look up and see if sometimes it's not very long, it's one course. Sometimes you can get a certificate just to learn something about the field, and maybe that will, spark you, to understand which area of communication. So that's something else. I think that a part of it is to have the confidence to find people to ask questions, to do the research. People will generally be willing to, be good guides. And if you can think through the people you've met along the way, generally there's someone who is willing to have a conversation, to be a sounding board, and that person can lead into another person. So I'm a very big proponent of building a network, building relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and remembering that to stay connected. And again, that's what like your generation does so beautifully, and supporting each other. So generally sharing advice, and being generous with that advice. It goes both ways. And I just would say that not to give up, it's just to get up. Just like you did that day when you sort of decided to get into what you're doing and just get yourself started.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Just start, right?
Yes.
I think it's so amazing because I started a content creator series on my blog because people were always asking me advice on how to start a YouTube channel or how to start anything. And I'm just like, you have to start. Like, you
Yeah.
just have to start it.
You have
Um,
to.
I can give you all the advice on like tips and stuff, but if you don't start, there's no point for my advice to like
Right.
help you.
It's, people don't give that advice that often, but actually it's really good advice that we're both giving everyone.
Yeah.
Just like get up and start, and again, what I think is that sometimes you learn more from the missteps.
Oh, yeah.
So don't figure that when you start, it's going to be this perfect thing either. But you'll have a benchmark, you'll have something to look at, and then you move it over a little to one side and to the left. But
Mm-hmm.
you get a sense of what you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, there's proof on my channel. It's not pretty when you first start.
Yeah,
So, but you learn from it. And I think it's so important to share the struggles, or not even really struggles, but the learning experiences,
yes,
because it's not always pretty. Like, nothing's going to be perfect when you start. You don't know how to edit. You don't know what to say to a client or a potential
yes,
client. Um,
exactly.
you fumble along and you figure it out.
Yeah, you figure it out as you go, and you try to say yes as much as you can say yes, and then you go back and you kind of figure out how to do it, or and then you say no when you really know that you're not going to be able to come through.
Yeah.
It's sort of choosing wisely, but just remembering to have that positive attitude. I just think it just carries us through.
Yeah. And it is important to say yes in the beginning. I just recently have had to start saying no, which
Yeah.
is hard. It's very, very hard. But for my sanity, I've had to learn to say no.
Oh yeah. I
So,
think that's right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's important. People say, "Oh, just say yes," but the truth is, then you have to start focusing your way through, and you can't do everything, and we're also not going to be the best at everything.
yeah.
So,
And there's just things I can't do. Like, I've
yeah,
just learned. Um,
exactly,
but I learned by saying yes first.
exactly. It's that attitude of yes first.
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you so much for coming on here and for being so generous and just sharing, because
Oh,
I think it's very important to everybody listening to know that everybody starts somewhere and you can have it all. You just have to kind of say yes and just do everything and
Yeah. And you may not have it all at the same time, but, over time, it's a very long and, beautiful life. And
mhm.
there's time to get it all in. I think we have to not be hard on ourselves and, just go forward. And I really, again, very much appreciate you talking to me and having me on,
Oh
and
my gosh, yes.
and everything that you're doing also to support CEW and Cancer and Careers and all our clients and
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so cool to finally talk to you.
Thank
Too.
you. Same here. I was watching everything that you're doing, and I wish you great luck. I think you're just a continued success.
Oh, thank you so much. And I know I'll most likely be working with Kaplow at some point. I mean, I'm doing it next week, but it's
Right. Hopefully tomorrow. That's
yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much for being a guest. And as always, if you guys have any questions or if you'd like to learn more, I will have all of the coordinating links in the show notes as well as in the YouTube video version. This video version is just going to be audio, obviously, since Liz is in New York right now. And if you guys want to subscribe or follow us along, you can definitely do so. We also have a website where you can listen to all of this amazing content. So thank you so much for being a guest, Liz. We'll see you next week.
Oh, thank you again. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Take care.
Bye.